Dear students, in the previous section we studied about the Renaissance. We began with Renaissance. What is the meaning of Renaissance? And what are the important defining elements that actually define the period of Renaissance, the rebirth? First, people started reading the ancient texts as against the church policies, church restrictions, and being exposed to the books of the classics, the classical writings of Greek, ancient Greek and Latin, that gave them a real idea about how people were already living before them, and how the whole of their free thinking was curtailed in the time of Middle Ages, the medieval period, when church was so strong, so powerful, and almost it decided every single simple aspect of human life, and that it actually sort of hindered them to proceed further. And the Renaissance, the rebirth, mean rediscovery of the ancient knowledge, gave them another chance to once again continue with their with the new discoveries and with the spreading of knowledge, that everyone started reasoning. They stopped simply to listen to the church authorities, but rather whatever they were taught, whatever they were asked to do, these people, they looked at them with a kind of critical thinking, and then they started following it. So that's what we saw in the early period and the Renaissance period. Now we will move on to the very important thing, the scientific revolution. So as you see here, the portrait of Nicola Copernicus. Okay, he is a person who brought out a terrible change, the very outlook of Christianity, the very outlook of the church, and he is a kind of a symbol of the modern period, Nicola Copernicus. So we will study about him in the coming sections. So first we will begin with this one, theism. What is theism? Theism means to believe in God. To believe in God is theism. Every one of us are theists because we believe in God. Now, why we talk of the believe in God when we talk of the scientific revolution? We talk of scientific revolution, something that actually broke away the traditional barriers. This scientific revolution, actually, the science actually broke the traditional barrier of theism. Church was always conditioning, limiting every discoveries. So as we read here, it was the dominant influence in Islamic countries. So theism was a dominant influence in Europe during the Middle Ages. In the same way, it was also a kind of dominant element even in the Islamic countries. So theists, usually people who believe in God. Okay, everybody who believes in God are called theists. So theists preach that God is the ultimate truth, the all-powerful who created the universe. Therefore, people should forsake the pursuit of comfort and prosperity in this world and seek a place near God in heaven. And there was no place for studying the physical world in such a thinking. So what happened? Now for them, God is important. He is the only one that is real, and what you find around you, they are not real. Even your own neighbors, they are not real, and therefore God is the ultimate truth, and therefore we should really go away from the comfort and prosperity of whatever things that we enjoy around the world. And therefore this type of strict asceticism would mean that people should not really study. They should not have any kind of knowledge. They should not go on doing any kinds of experiment. All that they should do is only they have to listen to the church leaders, and they should follow word by word about what is told about life in the scriptures, Bible. So what happens now, these kind of things would never allow anyone to think freely. They should always listen to the church leaders. They should not think freely. So such study was ever seen as being opposed to religious life. I mean, a study about the planetary movements, a study about new discoveries. Okay, so they were all considered to be something that is against religious life. This is why science could not progress in the Middle Ages. So Middle Age is always considered to be a kind of dark period, which never ever gave any chance to speak freely, any chance for development, we could say. But at the same time, when Europe was reeling under these Middle Ages, a kind of stagnant period, dark period in their history, we find a different story in the Islamic world. See, Islamic world was flowering with science during this period. They were very free. They were not controlled by the church authorities. They had their own religion. Therefore, they were really marvelously they were doing a lot with regards to the scientific discoveries. So we see that the early Arab philosophers, we have seen already, the Renaissance period, they translated the works of Chinese scientists and Indian mathematicians. So what happened? This gave them a push. This gave them a chance to further their experiments. So what they did, what actually they did, they also adopted some well-known Chinese inventions such as gunpowder, block printing, magnets. So as they were translating, these Arab philosophers, as they were translating the Chinese scientists, the works of Chinese scientists and Indian mathematicians, what they did, they simply tried to experiment whatever they came across when they were translating the works. So the Arab intellectuals built upon the work of Chinese and Indian astronomers in calculating the motion. The first thing what they did, they built upon the work of Chinese and Indian astronomers. Astronomers are those people who study about the movement of the stars, who study about the movement of the planets. They are the astronomers. So these people, these Arab intellectuals, philosophers, they actually continued the works of the Chinese and then Indian astronomers in calculating the motion of planets, stars and other heavenly bodies. So the scientific treatises from these countries found their way into European scientists. So slowly what happened, these works of the Arab philosophers gradually entered into the Europe during the later medieval period, around 1300s. So that is the dawn of the modern period. So these new discoveries actually influenced all the scientists who were in the Western Europe. So what happened when the study of Greek and Latin classics were revived in Europe? We just studied, in the beginning of the section when we were talking about Renaissance period. When they studied Greek and Latin classics once again, when it was revived in Europe, people there began studying scientific literature from Greece as well as the works of Arab science. For them, two things were sources. One was the literature from Greece. Even in the beginning itself, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates and many other Greek thinkers, they started studying about the heavenly bodies, astronomy. So for them, for the Western scientists, these two, all those people from all those thinkers from Greece, and then all the works of Arab science, they became the source. And from this source, they began slowly studying about the astronomy. So it was in those days we find that the European navigators were looking for a sea route. So it was during this time, during the revival of the science in the Western Europe in the early 1300s, sailors, the businessmen, they were actually trying to find sea routes because they were not able to pass through the Arab world. Therefore, they were trying to go through they were trying to find out the sea routes to go to other countries to do their business. Okay, so they were trying to find sea routes to India and China, and they had to cross unfamiliar seas and ocean. And they had to, because no one knew anything about what they would find in the deep sea. They were all traveling some kilometers away from the shore. No one dared enter into the deep sea because they were all thinking that Earth is a flat. Earth was flat, and therefore, if anyone ventures into a deep sea, they would eventually fall into space. They would never ever recover from the fall. So they were so afraid of going into the deep sea. But when the science slowly grew up, okay, they wanted to actually explore what they could actually find in the deep sea, how they can use the deep sea to travel from one place to the another place. So their only method of navigation across the ocean was by tackling the position of stars and planets in the sky. So what they were using to travel through the sea was just by tackling the motion of stars, the planets in the sky. So using them, they always had their journey. Okay, right. Now they also used, these sailors, they also used magnetic compass to chart their path. They always use the magnetic compass. So you would have studied about what a magnet does. A magnet always points towards north and south direction. So making use of the magnets, they were also traveling by the sea. And they also used a telescope with glass lens. So in the beginning, telescope was slowly it was being used, and they made use of this the telescope with glass lens. It was just invented, and it also helped them to look long distance across the sea. So you see, these sailors were actually, they were using the planetary motions, and they were using the magnets, they were using the telescope, the initial stages of a telescope that was recently invented in order to sail through the sea. And similarly, what happened, another important element that we find in the scientific revolution was cannons, the gunpowder. We have already seen that the Arabs, they learned from Chinese how to make the gunpowder, how to make use of the gunpowder. Okay. Similarly, what happened? These Europeans also got that method. They learned. In those days, cannons were used widely in war. Cannoneers, the people who are using the cannons, gun, had to know the angle at which the cannon should release the cannonball for it to strike the target. So making use of this mathematical, they were trying to achieve their target. They were trying to hit the target during the time of war, and for that, what one needs mathematics. Usually, if you work in army, all those who are involved in the what do you call, they are also called as cannoneers. The artillery section, we say artillery, ARTILLERY. People who work with cannons. Okay, you would have seen, a machine that has got a kind of big loop, and here you find here, and then they will insert a missile here, and then okay, now we have the missile system. Okay, to operate a missile system, usually they do lot of calculations. Okay, so these people, they also learn this calculation of how to clearly achieve the target, how to hit a target. Okay, so the cannoneers had to know the angle at which the cannon should release the cannonball for it to strike the target. The estimate of trajectory included factors like the weight of cannonball. Okay, all that you would study in your mathematics. Okay, see, every weight has got its own way of flying. We call that movement of flying as a trajecting. Okay, trajectory movement include trajectory movement. So and then the diameter of the cannonball. So all this involves scientific study. So actually, maths and science, they are not different from each other. Maths and science, they are one and the same. Actually, maths helps science. That is the reason why whenever you study physics or chemistry, all the mathematical things are involved there. You do the mathematical calculations almost now that you are in class 9th. Okay, now you will slowly begin to understand that there is no difference between physics and mathematics, because both are slowly interconnected. Whatever you learn in maths, you would employ them in physics, so both are same. Okay, right. Now that is why kings and merchants showed special interest in science and its investigation. Okay, and another important thing that we would study about the scientific revolution was important person is Roger Bacon. We also call him as Francis Bacon. So I will explain about Francis Bacon and his contribution in the next section. Thank you.